Hey, welcome back. Welcome back. The Collective Podcast. Shout out to our YouTube viewership, our Anchor and Spotify listenership. Thanks for coming back again. This is episode 9. We've been waiting to get to this, waiting to get to you. We appreciate you coming back again and again. And we're going to get right into it. The Last Dance, episodes 5 and 6. We left our last episode off talking about Toni Kucoc, and we were hanging on Rod's every word. So here we are again. Rod, go.
Yes, sir. So yeah, they we left off talking about Toni, his arrival in Chicago, and the unsaid treatment of when he got there. They kind of touched on it a little bit and said, yeah, he wasn't really well received because he was a Kraus guy. And Pippen was going through his thing with the contract, but they didn't really talk in detail about the treatment. I mean, they were letting this dude have it from the moment he arrived until I think the ribbing still continued after Pippen came back, but I think the pure dislike didn't end until Jordan realized while Pippen was gone, this dude can play and I need him. Like he wasn't just, somebody they brought in to kind of take up some minutes for a veteran who could fill his shoes. He could really play, and I think Jordan realized he knew in the back of his mind that Toni Kukoc could play from that gold medal game because the dude bounced back with 16, 5, and 6 against arguably two of the top 3 defenders in the NBA. And you can go on to kind of further say two of the top 3 defenders, arguably in league history, besides Dennis Rodman. So for him to bounce back like that and be able to play at a high level, and of course his team didn't win the game. The dream team was just too deep. But his individual play spoke volumes of how good he was. And I think Jordan at some point had to realize that and say, hey, Pippen's not around and I need this dude in the long haul. Because Jordan's, based on his discussions in between clips on The Last Dance, when you get the tone of what he's saying, most of the things he talks about is whatever was going to help him win, whether it was Pippen's decision to delay his surgery or whether it was players not playing up to their potential or whatever the case was. It all went back to, I don't care what they're doing as long as they help me win. Because that's definitely the feeling I got from him calling Pippen selfish when Pippen was sitting that first month when he was upset about his contract. And they didn't mention how far Jordan's numbers plummeted when Pippen was out. That's another thing that wasn't spoken about. He rebounded when Pippen came back to still reach that 50% shooting from the field. But while Pippen was gone, Jordan's numbers plummeted. Not the scoring numbers, but the percentages plummeted. He had to work extremely hard when Pippen was gone because Pippen took a lot of slack and did all of the dirty work. And he afforded Jordan chances. Like, you had to account for Pippen. You had to game plan for him. You couldn't just game plan for Jordan and act like Pippen wasn't there, because at this time, Pippen is arguably, he may be the number 2 player in the NBA. So that wasn't talked about. But there was definite definite hatred for Toni Kukoc being on that team. Um, and they kind of glossed over it, and I kind of felt for the dude. He's never been away from home, like I said earlier, and you know, older than I thought he was, but much younger than they were. Um, to go through that and not know anyone. He didn't have an ally on the team to say, "Hey, cut this guy some slack." He's just trying to be here and play. He's not trying to get into the middle. But that's how it was.
So
He survived.
so are you're just remembering the actual you're just remembering Tony's rookie year. That
Yeah,
we haven't seen that on the doc yet, right? We only saw the Olympics on the doc, right?
they kind of brushed over it, and they kind of let Tony talk a little bit, and he was taking the high road, saying, "Hey, I wasn't really offended because I didn't even really know that they hated me." Um, they called this dude names, call him, Kraus son, and all kind of Kraus jokes for him. And you can kind of feel the tone when they interact with Jerry on the team bus and stuff like that. They mock that dude, but it's almost like he's too. I guess, for the lack of a word,
Oblivious to know that they're
right?
serious.
Like, we're making a fool out of you, and you're laughing to it.
Right.
You just don't get it. And then, of course, towards the end of the joke, they would kind of laugh it off, but they didn't like that dude. I mean, how could you like him if you're riding on the bus or on the plane with him the whole year, knowing that he's given an ultimatum to the whole team, saying, "Hey, I'm busting all you guys up if you don't want to play here just because you want to play for Phil. I don't want Phil." And he knows that you've said, "Hey, we want to all play for Phil." I
Yeah.
mean, there has to be some kind of feeling when every time he steps on the bus. Like, they don't want him on the bus, and he's trying to hear everything someone says or someone's written. Like, they said that he was running the Phil Jackson, highlighting articles in that book by Sam Smith, you know, saying, "Hey, he's going to be fired for this. Why would he say that?" and all that kind of stuff. Well, it's not like Sam Smith lied, and I do agree with Jordan on one point that it seems like when you have a black superstar, they do seem to always be willing to find dirt while that player is playing. Not after they're done, because things came out about Larry Bird after the fact, about his parenting or lack thereof, when he apparently had children that he didn't speak to or didn't acknowledge. Um, and how much Bird trash talk. I've heard stories about from former players who said he'd call you the N word in the game, or he'd shoot a floater, and as the ball is in the air, he would say things like, "Yeah, go ahead, jump for it, N word," and while it's coming through the net. I mean, I heard all kind of Bird stories. Um, but yet we didn't have a person like Sam Smith, you know, pulling out a book on Bird with like a tell-all of racism or some kind of negativity going on with the Celtics. You know, we had that book. We had the same kind of stories with Barry Bonds. We didn't have that with uh, Mark McGuire. There was no one racing out to say, "Hey, you know what? I know Mark McGuire is up to something. We got to investigate and see what it is." Um, it came out kind of after the fact, but they were hell bent on busting Barry Bonds. He's at the top of the game. He's approaching Babe Ruth, and it's like we need to get something. It's almost like they were looking for a blemish. And you know, sometimes black players don't help the situation by giving them ammunition, but it seems to be a disparity when it comes to that. There were even books written about the Lakers. There's one book in particular, can't remember the name of it, but it has quotes by Gary Vitti and different people close to the Lakers. Um, it's in Barnes and Nobles. I read it while I was in college, and it spoke of how many women, Magic messed with during his time when he was with the Lakers, to the point where the commissioner sent a memo to the Lakers and said, "Hey, you got to do something to slow this dude down. He is running rampant through the league. He is hitting every woman walking." Um, and they said Magic, in the book says Magic didn't wait for he didn't wait to get dressed and leave the stadium. Like when they would go in fresh off the floor and they would get in the circular tub for ice and stuff like that, Magic would have 5 or 6 women waiting for him there. Stop. I mean, this book is tell all. I'm definitely going to look it up and find it and try to have it.
But, 1 point of order, real quick. Listeners, watchers, Rodney says that he read this book while in college. I just want to be clear. Rodney finished college before Magic was born. So there's no way that he read this book in college. He just messed up right there. Okay, go ahead, Rod.
Yeah, but the book is a tell-all, and again, another highest level black player, and I don't see these same books and investigative articles on high profile white players.
Now, back in the day, Rod, when you guys had the likes of Newt Rodney and all of that, I don't know who the black players were back then, but did they have tell-alls? I'm just asking. So you brought up a good point though about Toni. Let me go to this real quick. You talk about, and they talked about, like the bounce back. Oh, he had 4 points in the first game in pool play, and then he got 16 in the championship game. Mm-hmm. What I don't know is if they cared as much about shutting him down in the championship game as they did in the first game. And while I know that Toni Kucoc was a great player, even when they shut him down, and was a great NBA player, is it a testament to his resolve and resilience that he got 16 points in the championship game, or are we reading too much into that? Because I know that was the angle of the doc, but what is any kind of player worth his salt supposed to do when he plays again? Is he supposed to just lay down?
You know what? I've watched the game a couple of times, and when you mention it in that way, I'll probably watch it again just to see if I've missed something. But for me, I can still see the way they guarded him and feel that they were trying to close him out both times.
Okay, fair enough. I'm not discounting. I'm not.
Yeah. Now, I will say, to your point, I will say, once they got a bigger lead, because I think the final score was like 117-85 or something like that. So, I think it was less important towards the end of the game to make sure that he didn't get any more baskets. But the second game didn't look like the first. You could feel the difference in him the second game, whereas the first game he played frustrated, he looked frustrated. I mean, it was clear that they had it out for him, and they made a point of making him look bad, and they did it. I mean, like I said, you got two guys guarding one person, and they're hell bent on not letting him get anything, and they're willing to sacrifice giving 20 or 25 to somebody else to make sure he gets nothing. Um,
Okay. I asked simply because I wanted to know, but the reason why this was sparked because I don't remember. I don't, I wasn't paying attention to Toni Kukoc as much back when I was watching then, like before the first time around. But I'm wondering because there's a 30-point spread or a 30+ point spread in both games, and or in each game. So I just wanted to know.
Yeah,
because that was one of the themes. Like even the announcers and whoever it was, like, oh, look at Toni Kukoc. He didn't lay down. He's got 16 points tonight.
right.
Look at that.
And, see, and that's what made me pay attention to that game even more because they had built Toni Kukoc into Jesus Christ. I mean, I'm like, who is this dude? I really need to see him play against some real players. Because my thinking back then was Europeans are soft. They can't handle the NBA, which is why we don't see them over here. That was my whole thinking. And when I did see him play, I'm like, all right, this dude can play. And I don't give that title up too easily. Because I saw Jordan talk about Dan Marley, and I could feel that Jordan, he had the feeling of, well, if Dan Marley can stop me a few times, they'll make it seem like we're equal. And nowhere in hell did, even if Dan Marley stopped him a few times, there's no way in hell I would think that Jordan and Dan Marley were equal. He just would have been a guy that made a few defensive plays, but they weren't in the same league. But if Jordan felt that, and there are always racial undertones with him that he doesn't speak of, because he know why he wanted to kill Dan Marley, and he knows what it meant for a white player to be able to slow him down or stop him. Because it's not like now where all these players are buddy buddy and they hang out with their white teammates. Back then, in the 90s and the 80s, early 2000s, it was still the thinking of white players don't even belong on the same floor with black players. They just there to spot up and shoot if we get triple team. That's all they're good for. Like, it's an embarrassment if you were guarded by a white player back in the day. It's not like that anymore. But in the 80s and 90s, if you were guarded by a white player, it was disrespectful. Like, how dare you put this slow dude on me? Because we, number one, automatically thought he was slow. He couldn't move his feet. He couldn't jump because that's what the thought of a white player was back then. The media helped, with that thinking. Because every time they got the ball, he's such a heady player. They always use that word.
Mm-hmm.
You remember the old guard from North Carolina State, Chris Corchiani?
Mm-hmm.
I used to hate to watch him play. I mean, with a passion. He would do this thing where he would speed in front of the defender and get in front of him and then hit the brakes and make the defender crash at the back of him to get a foul.
Yep.
And it wasn't a smart play, I guess. If you want to say that's a smart play to get somebody to pick up a cheap foul and leave the game, and now they got a good defender or potentially good defender sitting on the bench, if you want to say that. But he was no smarter than some of the other players on the floor. He just did little slick stuff, but doesn't mean other players didn't do little slick stuff. But every time announcers spoke of him, they made him seem like he was the smartest thing, since the creation of basketball. And I could not stand it. And then when they would, put the spotlight on a black player like Sherman Douglas or Charles Smith from Georgetown, it
Fuck the
was,
Celtics.
it
Sorry.
was, oh,
Oh, we live. My bad.
you know, he's slick with the ball. He's crafty. He's athletic. You know, um, and that was a lot of Dick Vitale, um,
Billy Packer.
Billy Packer. Feeding into that, and so over the years, that's why it exploded when Magic and Bird came together at the same time. I mean, like I said before in the prior podcast, you had racial lines drawn. And I'm sure, even if Magic hasn't said it, which I'm probably sure he has to someone, he probably felt slighted or disrespected if you would breathe Bird in the same breath as him. No matter how good anyone else thought Bird was, I'm sure, and we know Magic, and I really truly pay attention to a player's personality to get the true essence of how they are. Like I said with Magic, Magic was never going to back down to Jordan and was never going to say at the time they were playing, Jordan is better than me. Ever. I don't care how he sugarcoats it in the media today. At that time, which is why you can hear him on the video saying, I'm coming at you every single play. I don't know what these guys going to do, but every play, I'm talking. Because Jordan, you could hear Jordan getting frustrated with Magic, saying, why you talk so much? And he's like, I'm going to keep on talking. And so when you get to understand a player's mentality, when they're kind of glossing over something or when they're being straight up. You know it. You know the ones that keep it 100, as they say, and you know the ones that take the political role and ride the fence and stay in the middle. You know which ones do it. We know Tiger has always took the political high road and not say anything that's gonna make a mess with his marketing deal. And Jordan was that way, you know. As much as he was on last night saying, "Oh, I didn't see myself as a social activist, and I just wanted to play ball." You can't just play ball in that position. You can't.
You can't.
Well,
You know.
it's okay. So be clear, you can, but it's definitely a waste of power.
Well,
And he did.
I'll say it this way: not taking a position takes a position because he tried to not take a position and he took a position. So, whether you want to come out and say, "Hey, I want Gant to win this election," or not, by not saying it, you're saying, well, either I don't care if he wins or not, or I'm going with this other guy.
I want Helms, yeah.
And you're leaving the public now, since you won't say it, you're leaving the public to make that announcement for you.
Oh,
that's kind of why I wrote this post on Facebook, and I wanted to read it. I said I'm still pissed at Mike for that comment, and some others not reported over the years. Was involved in a project with a bunch of top writers to highlight the legacy of Chicago basketball that fell through a few years back. One of the biggest questions I wanted to ask many legends, past and present, from Chicago was, did Mike do anything for the hood? I got mixed results. Some said Mike and the Bulls didn't even visit the projects near the United Center ever. Others said Mike did a lot in terms of apparel and camps, so both could be true. Just wish he did more for Harvey Gantt or anything else publicly, socially. Jesse Helms was a monster. And if Mike uttered a word, a phrase, a sentence, the probability of a shift would have dramatically rose. Further, Mike's lack of public consciousness silenced many great athletes the decade after 2000 because it all became about the dough. They followed his blueprint and endorsements exploded. So we lost that decade. Get that dough, though. Just wish he did a little more. Also, that pick ain't America. And I don't know if you remember last night, it was a pic of an overhead shot of Mike in the middle of a media throng. And I think I only saw like maybe 2 black faces out of 20, 25.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, Tiger did follow Mike's blueprint, you know, and a lot of other athletes from that decade, particularly basketball stars, followed Mike in their silence. It was embarrassing to me. We're not asking you to say anything too crazy. You know, that's that pick right there. That's not America. It's not. You know, but that's what it is always. You know, we've seen it so many times, walking in the locker room and seeing that exact picture. And, you know, that the majority becomes the voice and a perception of legacies. And then when those legacies are challenged by people like us, you know, there's an issue. Why do they always want to talk about race? You know?
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. That's probably. I don't think I held it against Tiger. Whatever. I didn't hold it against Tiger as much as I held it against Mike. But I think that's one of the reasons why I was just impressed with Mike from afar. Impressed with Mike as an athlete from afar, but I never celebrated Mike because I just felt like he had so much power and influence that could have been used for good, and he just kept it in his pocket. That was my take, and yeah. So that being said, I had just a brief text exchange with Marques Johnson this morning. I'll show you guys a little screenshot of that. And I'll tell the listeners what it is. Just want to make sure. So we all saw on the doc that Mike was talking about potentially going to someone other than someone other than Nike, right? So I had to hit Marques this morning. You see that? My text to Marques says, the influence. Mike wanted to go with Adidas because of you. He talked about that. He talked about wanting to go with Adidas because of Marques Johnson. And
right. He didn't even want to take the Nike meeting. Yeah.
That's so I got the thumbs up back from Marques. So shout out to Marques influencing the NBA and the culture.
This scribble is brilliant.
Thanks, man. Appreciate that. What I did really, and we got to get to the NFL, fellas. We're 28 minutes in this episode, but what I thought was really compelling about this was to not only didn't he want the fact that he didn't want to take the meeting, amazing, but just some of the dialogue. You're a small company, Nike, and if you want to get to the next level, you've got to give Mike his own shoe. And I didn't know that David Falk is the one that coined Air Jordan. And no one disputed it, but he said he did. He was like, okay, Mike plays in the air and da-da-da-da-da. So Air Jordan, because Nike was saying Nike Air, and he said Air Jordan. But I thought even just a little printed out sign saying the Nike family welcomes the Jordan family, and then the Jordan family took the picture under it, and the influence of Mike's mom. Oh, that's what the other thing I was going to say with the Harvey Gantt thing. You love his mom, right? She's like, Mike, you got to say something.
Yeah.
And he says, no, I don't. I thought that was compelling.
Right. And just slid some money under the table.
Yeah. An anonymous donation. Yeah. An anonymous donation that maybe helped the campaign, but didn't help him win. So the influence of his mom, I guess, did have limits. She got him to Nike, but then when it came to that, yes, Brianna, but when it came to that, when it came to Gantt, it didn't work. When it came to Nike, it worked. So that was interesting. But what I thought was compelling was the fact that Nike was a track shoe company and everything changed. And they wanted, what did they say? They wanted $4 million over the first 3 years, and that would have been a good ROI for the $250 a year they were giving Mike, or maybe they just gave Mike $250 flat over 3 years. They wanted $4 million over 3 years, and they got $162 million from that shoe in year one.
Well, I thought they were expecting $3 million for the first year, and they got 126. That's what I thought I heard.
No, it was $4 million over 3 years is what they wanted. They weren't expecting $3 million in 1 year. It was $4 million over 3 years. So that it was so compelling that they got the return probably on day one, but that it was in 1 year as opposed to the 3.
Yeah. Wow.
So I'm sure that we all feel that way. By the way, once again, shout out to our YouTube viewers, our Anchor and Spotify listeners. Thank you for coming back time and again. Trey is not with us this episode. He has some familial obligations. So shout out to Trey. We miss you, fella. Let's keep it going. Rest in peace, Don Shula. We found out that Don Shula passed on Monday morning. So rest in peace. As Mike put on his wall, #undefeated. Straight up.
Tight end for the Bears also passed away. Wet night. 49 years old.
Wow.
Had cancer. Yeah.
Knock on wood. Somebody else's neck.
Wow.
Yeah.
Brees.
Yeah. Rest in peace. So let's go to the NFL, man. Let's talk about. We woke up to a tweet from Donovan McNabb, and I'll let Mizzo kick it off. But we woke up to a tweet from Donovan McNabb talking about certain things happening with quarterbacks in the NFL, and we were already planning on talking about quarterbacks in the NFL anyway, because we were talking about quarterbacks who were drafted into other positions. I think 2 different ones on the same team, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Philly, right?
Yeah.
Is it quarterback? What they call it? The quarterback factory. Is that what it's called? What is it? The quarterback? It's not factory. What was it? Or whatever it is. Quarterback company. Let's talk about it. But I'm gonna pull up Donovan's tweet while you kick it off, Mizzo.
Well, it was I got the meme from a group, and because it's Donovan, because I've covered him. We talked about that. AC put me in a position to cover him for a few years. I always thought that Donovan was slighted, and him being slighted that leads to a certain sense of bitterness. We know about Donovan and how he reached out to young black quarterbacks and they shunned him. And look where it landed them, specifically Robert Griffin III. So Donovan tweets that there's a disparity between the Red Rocket, Andy Dalton signing up a $7 million a contract that could land him $7 million in a year, as opposed to Jameis Winston coming off a 3rd most yards ever, 5,109, signing basically a 1 year $1 million deal to back up Drew Brees. The compelling thing is, what happens if Drew Brees gets hurt? He could end up being that quarterback there in New Orleans and playing for $1 million, which is paltry now in any sport, right? So Donovan also spoke about that Cam Newton was still out there on the street. Dak Prescott, for all of the speak about him that is generating clicks for websites, has yet to sign his big mega deal. And his counterpart here in Philly signed his last year. He got his $120 million. It's when you begin to see, legends speak about this. I hope that it comes to the cusp of punditry where they actually comment on Donovan's words without being critical of him or even clowning him as people are prone to do when an athlete or a former athlete speaks out. This is right up my alley. I then tweeted about a series of pieces that I wrote on Donovan, that he liked. And, because this is becoming ridiculous. It's so blatant at this point. And to see these quarterbacks have to settle for pennies, like Teddy Bridgewater really had to prove himself to get signed. Though in the first game after Brees' injury and Teddy comes into the game, Troy Aikman and Joe Buck both said that this should be Taysom Hill's team. Taysom Hill has thrown 6 passes. Teddy Bridgewater, before injury, threw for a lot of yards. I think he took his team to the playoffs. He had the horrific injury and came back. That should be the story. Like, you don't see the story of Teddy Bridgewater, the miraculous return of Teddy Bridgewater. It's not documented by the mainstream. It might be some type of E60 type of story,
right?
But you don't see it like you don't see it. Sports Center talking, oh my gosh, Teddy Bridgewater's back after suffering so horrible an injury. His knee was shredded. He fought back and won those 6 games in New Orleans, and they still didn't re-sign this guy. Like, did they offer him? Like, I don't know the particulars, but you would think that they would have offered Teddy Bridgewater a deal to be Drew Brees' heir, instead of saying, okay, you're good to go elsewhere. And then he goes and replaces arguably the best player in Panthers history, Cam Newton, who was an MVP and took him to the Super Bowl. It just doesn't make any sense to me. It doesn't make any sense. We talked about before how Brady came in and basically just took Jameis Winston's job. He just, okay, this is where I want to play now, so you gotta go. You gotta go, little boy. Despite you throwing for the most yards ever up until this point in your career, you're nothing. And he has to settle. This is it's just I'm numb to it at this point because it happens every year. It happens at draft time. I don't want no special treatment for black quarterbacks. I just want equality.
Right.
That's it. And I want equality from the top down, whether you are in NFL administration or the media meritocracy, if there is such thing. But it shouldn't be guys like me and us talking about this every single year. The only thing that changes is the name of the quarterback. There are only 2 quarterbacks who did not kind of ascend to where we thought they would be. And that is Geno Smith and RG3. You know, the rest of the guys have done something. You know, they've been something throughout their NFL careers. We don't know what Deshaun's rookie year would have been had he not been injured. Like, I mean, he was on a super record pace at the time. You know, and for them to get rid of DeAndre Hopkins is crazy to me. But I mean, that's the thing. You know, like I was following because everybody was saying that, you know, they would still take if they had their choice. If it was Cam Newton and Andrew Luck, they would still take Andrew Luck, right? You know, Andrew Luck would have been the #1 pick if he would have came out. You know, and if you look at Andrew Luck's playoff record and the number of picks that he had like 7 picks in 2 games. It was kind of ridiculous. But that's a stat that just isn't mentioned as much as you guys said. The dirt is found early. The dirt becomes the main topic of a black quarterback in times. But yet it does not even be mentioned on the first page with a guy named Andrew Luck. Andrew Luck was a great quarterback, and I mean, it's a shame that, you know, he was injured and wasn't able to finish his career because he was on the uptick, you know. But, you know, why does it have to be Superman, white horse, soldier, champion quarterback over here, and this guy really doesn't belong because we don't like to see black people make millions of dollars? That's essentially what it is. It's the amount that they're making, this the prestige that they have, you know. And we all know where Cam came from and how he, you know, finally was at Auburn and, you know, basically was a one-man team and took that team to the championship. You know, it's crazy that we have to continuously mention this. Is ridiculous. But I feel like if we don't mention it, it will not be said. You know, and even the black fans of football will trumpet, you know, those who don't give a damn. Who's the guy that's a saving guy on ESPN? The college football guy.
Kirk Herbstreit.
Nah, he's gets glasses, older guy, balding in the center.
Chris Fowler? Oh, I don't know. Hold on. No, Chris Fowler has hair. What's his capacity?
He's a college football guy. He talks about Nick Saban a lot. Kind of a curmudgeon type of dude, older guy. Man, I can't. His name's on the tip of my tongue. But when Cam Newton was going through this injury,
what's his capacity? Is he like on game day?
No, he's not on game day. He's just like one of these guys that they go to. He's a go-to guy for college reporting that they talk about, and I think he's closely aligned with Saban. I'm not sure. I don't watch ESPN too much anymore, but I just see his face on there a lot. He's a polarizing guy. Like you said, he's a older white guy. He's balding in the middle of his head. He wears glasses. I can't remember his name. I'm sorry. But, you know, when Cam was going through this process, no, he got hair, man. This guy has no hair in the middle.
No.
Huh?
Lee Corso?
Lee Corso still has hair.
Oh, all right. My bad.
I can't remember this guy's name, man. I'm same I brought up his name, but, you know, he was talking about Cam that no one cares about Cam Newton no more. He doesn't care about Carolina. He doesn't care about this. He's a bad guy. You know, and I think it was Ryan Clark and the other guy that works for Dominique Foxworth. I think they both pushed back on this guy. Like, oh, where did this come from? You know, and I think they had both of them had it on the tip of their tongue. Like, yo, basically, you're being like really racist right now. That, you know, you're talking about Cam in this sort of way, you know, despite his accomplishments in the NFL. It's like if they get under your skin, if these guys get under their skin, they're just written off. And that becomes their NFL legacy. This guy obviously didn't like Cam when he was in college. He probably didn't like when he was at Florida. So he goes Auburn, win champion, Heisman Trophy winner, first round pick, 4,000 yards in his first season, comes out the box, 400 yards passing in his first 2 games. And, the second year he throws for 3,800 yards, and they considered him that as a drop off. Instead of Cam needs to change things. It's just an interesting study. It only happens to certain guys. When it happens to black quarterbacks, it's something to be acknowledged, and to not sit there and settle for it and allow it to get into the fabric of the legacies of these guys. But we just have to push back on it to make sure that there's an opposite opinion of these guys. That's grounded in fact. It's not something that we're just saying just to devote space to defending the culture. This is defending the actual facts of a player. Like, why are these things happening? Like, I have yet, and I've said this before, but I have yet to hear an analyst say why Jalen Hurts was the 3rd round grade, given his production was superior to his predecessors at Oklahoma. Both of them were Heisman Trophy winners. So I mean that's the thing. Why do these things continue to happen? Like, why did Jalen Hurts fall to the 2nd round? Was it 53rd pick in a league that covets quarterbacks? So when he falls to the 53, he goes to inevitably a team that has a starter, an entrenched starter. And it's crazy here in Philly now. They're still talking about it, And I expect that team to have a lot of gimmicks next season. Like, they're going to have those 3 quarterbacks on the field at the same time, probably. I hope one of them doesn't get hurt.
That's crazy.
But that's what they're going to do. They obviously have one at receiver, but they're probably going to put him in the backfield at times, and they put Jalen Hurts in the backfield. You got Carson Wentz who can run a little bit. They probably going to have a little triple option going on because they see that it worked in Baltimore. I think a lot of people are going to copy what Baltimore is doing and put the necessary personnel in place to exact that type of copycat ball. But I'm glad that Donovan spoke out. I think it's that's the difference between, we were talking about Mike and stuff like that earlier. Sit down and you don't really talk about things. I think it's Donovan's responsibility to bring that up. I really do think so, and I'm glad that he did. So that allows me to even co-sign, what he said. And y'all know how I feel about black quarterbacks. And I think everybody knows about how I feel about black quarterbacks. But it's just a symbol of the culture for me. It's not really just about black quarterbacks in football. It's more about it's more about the actual racism that seems to be around us everywhere we go. And you just have to reframe in football as a black quarterback in terms of leadership. We've never been given respect as leaders.
You made me think of something, Mike. You mentioned in our last episode, you talked about what would the NBA body of work look like if there had been no ABA for Dr. Julius Erving. I counter that, and I appreciate that, and I wonder too, like, wow, right? And then when you're talking about what if he were on the Bucks with Oscar Robertson and Cap, but I want you to expand your mind and tell me, what does it look like if Warren Moon spends his entire NFL career, his entire pro football career in the NFL?
Obviously that his numbers will be totally off the charts. Like the 5,000-yard seasons and the 50 touchdown seasons and the 70,000-yard career. That stuff would have been approached by him a long time ago, especially in that system in Houston with Mouse Davidson on them. That was an incredible thing. He had one tall receiver, but Warren Moon is that Dr. J-like casualty, if you will. He was way before his time. That one that he wore, I never got that Houston Oilers jersey that one. Now I wanted that white one so bad, but I did get it when he was a Viking. I make sure to mention Warren Moon's name when the top quarterbacks of all time are mentioned.
Good. That's why I was bringing that up.
It has to happen. It can't be just Marino, Montana, Elway. Of course, it's Brady and Rodgers, and they're going to say Brees, and some stupidity is going to say Phillip Rivers, but his name is still going to be.
Nobody's saying Phillip Rivers.
They're going to say it because of his stats, his yardage. They're going to say it. They're going to put him up there when they look at it.
Is he when you're done? I want to come back to Phillip Rivers really quickly and about how polarizing he is, but I don't want to take you off base.
No, but I mean just Warren Moon in particular, was we all know about his story. He played at Washington. He was the first black quarterback playing the Rose Bowl where he beat Michigan, and was really a mobile quarterback at the time. That could obviously throw the ball because he had great arm strength and upper body strength. And, Warren Moon just threw a pretty ball. He was not drafted, so he went to the CFL and, just won all kinds of Grey Cups. So what did he win? 5 Grey Cups, I think. And ultimately came to the NFL, was Rookie of the Year. And had a great career, but we are dismissed even in our greatness, like we don't become the names that are mentioned throughout time. There was a debate as to whether Warren Moon was a Hall of Famer, and I'm like, what?
Can't be. Well, here's let me tell you something. What is the Hall of Fame called? What is the Hall of Fame called?
Pro Football.
Yes.
Yeah.
Not the NFL Hall of Fame.
Right.
So you can't even argue it. You can't. It's the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
There were so many.
Even if you tried to, you can't.
Yeah, I was just so surprised that it was actually a debate. It was an actual debate, and it should not have been a debate. Like sometimes you got to give it up, man. You got to give it up for some guys. And like you said, it shouldn't have been a debate given the name of the actual Pro Football Hall of Fame. But, if you don't talk about Warren in the proper context, you're not going to talk about Randall Cunningham in a proper context. Or, the guys that follow him. Like they're always going to be talked about as some type of, like they're starting to add like these basketball type lingo to NFL. Fast break football. You don't hear them say that about white quarterbacks. It's the fact that white quarterbacks are throwing the ball all over the field. You never hear fast break. And it's jump balls. All those type of things that are mentioned. They still always talk about Randall. He throws a great jump ball. To where only the receiver can get it. But it's almost like it was a negative connotation attached to it. And that's going to be what is happening. I want analysts to talk about black quarterbacks just as they would their sons. Because I know if I'm the analyst and I see your son out there balling out, I'm going to give him every credit he is due. It's not going to be some type of insecure thing when I'm not going to mention how great he is just because he does not look like me. I'm going to give him credit because he is performing on the field.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's. I'm glad Donovan talked about it. I really am, and I'm glad that that's happened. I'm glad that we're discussing it.
I think more quarterbacks.
Because I see I see us as being equal. There's no dichotomy. I'm not going to. Because we're black. Like y'all know what I say about bonus ball. Bonus ball wins games.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and what he's talking about, Rod's got to come back in because he was kind of blurry, so I put him out. What he's talking about, y'all, is the quarterbacks that get those extra yards on the ground, and have the 1,000 yards on the ground, and we're talking about, or hundreds of yards on the ground. So we're talking about 10 first downs every 100 yards is how Mike likes to put it. So no doubt. That's better, Rod. It was really blurry.
Yeah, I saw it getting like fuzzy. I was trying to play with the 480 or 720 to see if that helped. None. It wasn't doing anything.
Got you.
I hope more quarterbacks besides Donovan come out and say something. The bigger the names, the better. But it's almost like until some of their white counterparts actually start stepping up to say something on their behalf, it just doesn't move the needle. It can't be one sided where it's like only black quarterbacks see this.
Mm-hmm.
It's got to be somebody out there who says, "Yeah, this doesn't look right. I see why they feel the way they feel," and it's got to be somebody that's not of color because it to some it'll come off as well. Here we go with those black players complaining again.
Yep.
I mean, despite the fact that they see the obvious with the pay, with the way players are described, because my mom and I had a conversation one day, and she likes to watch Judge Joe Brown and stuff like that. She's retired, so she got nothing but time. And I asked her because she's a pastor, and I've always told her that she has to be very careful of when she words things and she wants to get her point across. Uh, Adjectives play a huge part in how people feel about what you're saying.
Right.
And so there's a funny episode of Martin and Shanae and Tommy get into a car accident. And Shanae goes to court, and her lawyer is played by Mark Curry. He's Ronnie Cochran, Johnny Cochran's cousin or something like that. And she gets on the stand and she says, "He plowed into my classic Mercedes." And so Tommy said, "No, I bumped her Mercedes, put a small dent." And it's much like we hear in sports, or even when I'm on the court or, a football field and a coach says, "Rodney, they just elbowed my player in the mouth."
He took my player's head off.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
He clotheslined my player. And I'll say, "Coach, if a defender elbowed your socked your, because they use the word sock, they'll say tackle,
Yeah.
Plowed into, and you hear these words, these phrases, and you think this is horrific. Did I really miss something that big?" But I'm like, so I thought about it and I said, "Coach, if a player actually walked over and socked your player in the mouth, you wouldn't hesitate getting a technical foul right now. You wouldn't hesitate getting ejected because you'd be out on this floor berating us, chasing us, whatever you had to do to make sure you brought this to our attention when it happened. And as a player's parent sitting in the stands, a parent would say no, especially a mother would say no. That person socked my baby. I'm running out there on this field and I'm gonna do something, or I'm gonna get out there on this court and I know if somebody socked my son during a game, I wouldn't wait for officials as a parent.
I'm on the field.
Now, as an official, I'm gonna look for it and try to correct it. But as a parent, because I have kids that play sports, so as a parent, your natural reaction is to protect your child,
Right?
And you're not gonna have a player that just walks over and out of nowhere just socks your kid in the mouth. Coach, you can't tell me that somebody just socked your kid in the mouth and you just stood there. I know you'd be on the floor. So these, these announcers, and especially the announcers, because the fans listen to the announcers and eat it up as gospel with whatever they say. If the media says that was a terrible call, it used to be the next day on the playground we'd be talking about it and somebody would be saying that was a terrible call. Now, if an announcer says it's a terrible call, within 3 minutes, there's a meme already produced about a terrible call. So they have to really. I don't know if it. I don't know. I guess it would come with practice, but they have to be schooled, and even the writers, announcers, media people, analysts, they have to be schooled in how to. If they don't know, I'm not talking about the ones that don't know, but the ones who go about it, and a lot of the younger ones mimic the older ones. They don't. I don't think they purposely try to slight some players. Some of them do, but some of them are just mimicking the catchphrases that they hear the older ones say. I mean, even the black analysts do it. I hear Booger McFarland and some of the other guys use the same catchphrases as the guys that train them on what to say on television. So they have to be more careful and more aware of the adjectives that they use to describe these players and make sure that they fit.
Agreed.
It can't be this huge discrepancy of every time we see a white player, they're brainy and extra smart, and every time we see a person of color, that's a good play. They're athletic,
Right.
they're savvy, they're slick with the ball. It can't be that. That part has to change.
It's up to us to challenge that, though, because
right. And now,
it will be mimicked.
And nowadays, you hear, "Oh, he's a high IQ player," so it's progressing because they will say that about certain players. They say it about LeBron, and they'll say it about certain other players.
Russell Wilson,
but you don't hear it across the board.
No.
Which I'm not saying you should, because there are some players that are dumb as a brick. And I wouldn't call them dumb on the air, but I can understand not using brainy or high IQ on players who are not high IQ. But if you're going to do it with one group, you got to do it across the board.
And
it fit for. Yeah.
And if we historically say, and not we, it's status quo, if we historically say that the quarterbacks of the world are the most cerebral athletes, well, the most cerebral football players, because they do give credit to some other like single player sports that, you have to be cerebral. like golf. But when we say that the quarterbacks are the most cerebral football players, boy, did we hear high football IQ from about when describing a lot of the white quarterbacks. And you guys just mentioned Russell. I didn't hear high IQ about Lamar. I just heard athletic. We might hear it about Mahomes. I'm not recalling it, but I think that he's got that edge. Okay, well, I was going to shoot them some bail. Like, they're recognizing that he comes from a pro athlete. Actually, I don't know his mom's background, so maybe 2 pro athletes, but at least 1 pro athlete in a MLB pitcher. So they'll give him credit for being able to dissect the game. But I don't hear it about Lamar. I didn't hear it about Colin. I don't hear it about Mr. Cameron Newton, who can't even get a job right now. Jameis. I don't hear that. But boy, Phillip Rivers, look how he gets in the minds of the other quarterback. He doesn't even play against the other quarterback. How is he getting in their minds? He just yells at people. But it's really despicable. And I guess they don't say it about all of them because they don't say it about Roethlisberger, but I think they say it about everyone else. Yeah. So.
Well, with Roethlisberger, they talk about his toughness and,
able to stand up in the pocket.
Right, his leadership ability.
I want to just say this real quick, right?
He has nimble feet. He's not quick, not fast, but he's nimble. He the adjectives sound better. It sounds positive and encouraging versus, I don't know.
Since we're on the topic of black quarterbacks, I just want to shout out Vince Evans real quick from your Raiders. Boy, did he hold down the fort as a backup there in L.A. Did he go back to Oakland? I just meant for the Raiders, but yeah, also Chicago. So Vince Evans for like really holding the torch for a while, and then we got Randall and Warren. And I think Vince might have stayed on another 10 years. Vince Evans' career was forever. Yeah. So shout out to Vince Evans. And then shout out to cats who didn't get a lot of opportunities to start, but stayed in the league. Shout out to Rodney Pete. Shout out to Charlie Batch. I know I'm missing someone. Did Andre Ware get some run? He got a little run in Detroit, right?
When he got drafted, but he fizzled out fast. He didn't. Okay. Charlie Batch definitely had a good long run.
Detroit and Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh, yeah. Yeah, he definitely had a nice run.
And then speaking of Rodney, by the way, Rodney and Holly, we'd like to have you on the show. Skip is highly regarded quarterback coach, right? Skip Pete, Rodney's brother.
Possibly. I'm not positive on that.
Yeah, he is.
I don't know a lot about him.
He's a quarterback whisperer.
Okay. But yeah, as far as the future goes, we definitely have to have some people willing to stay on the offensive side of the ball and become coordinators and coaches and quarterbacks coach. That's the only way. That's the only way this thing could really start to take off for them. They have to have someone in their corner who has some rank. And you have to have a GM who's willing to spend some money to get the quarterback you have some help and for the team to win and for these people to continue striving going forward. As Mizzo said before, you get a black quarterback and then he doesn't have anybody to throw to. I mean, it's like you pushing a rock uphill. And his coordinator or quarterbacks coach, they may get fired, but they'll just get moved to a different job and probably in a better position somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
whereas he'll just fizzle out and they'll say, well, he couldn't do this, he couldn't do that. And he'll just get washed. He'll be a wash within a few years. I was just realizing, looking at the ticker last night on ESPN, how many fifth-year player options are not being picked up this year. Trubisky, Fournette, that draft is becoming a bust.
Yeah, but Fournette, he ran for a career high yards and touchdowns.
Yeah,
career high, like it's the most he's ever done. All of a sudden decided, so that had to be a locker room thing. That's what I'm figuring.
And he's never in shape in the offseason. Yeah. He constantly battles his weight.
Yep.
He's always injured. So, when it's fair, I get it. When it comes to business, you don't want somebody that you spend a lot of money on that you constantly have to say, hey, man, can you hit the salad bar every now and then? Do you always have to go to mom's house and fill up your plate? Can you push back a little? I mean, I get that. And that's just business. So I am not one to take everything as an issue with race when it's fair. And I think in his case, with what they put into him, and they were definitely trying to make him the focal point of the team, to the point where they weren't even drafting quarterback. I mean, they had what's the guy's name?
Who are we talking about?
Leonard Fournette, running back.
Blake Bortles
came out of LSU, played for Jacksonville. Big guy.
Oh, Blake Bortles is quarterback.
Blake Bortles, yeah. Mm-hmm. I'm like, dude, if there's anybody that's terrible, it's him. And you passing up quarterbacks that could at least get you a few more first downs. I mean, this dude can't throw the rock in the ocean. And you're gonna keep him as the starter because the defense is getting you the ball back, and you leaning on this running game that much. Like, they didn't even lean that much on the quarterback from the Ravens when they won with Shannon Sharp.
Trent Dilfer. No, that was Tampa Bay.
But
who was it in Baltimore?
But they were similar. Trent Dilfer and the Ravens quarterback were similar. They were basically the same player.
Who was it?
Trent Dilfer.
Was he?
No, he won the Tampa Bay Super Bowl.
Nah.
Who won the Tampa Bay Super Bowl then?
Brad Johnson.
No.
I think Dilfer
was it Trent Dilfer in Baltimore? Okay. Yeah. No, he didn't win both. And Rod's right. It is like the same quarterback, but no.
They played the exact same way. Like, the quarterback was my bad. Like, the quarterback for both of those teams were just basically filling up a jersey. They had, just don't make a mistake. Don't make a big mistake. You got Ray Lewis and Ed Reed behind you, and what's the big guy who I was afraid he was so big? Saragossa?
Yeah.
I mean, he was so big at one point. I'm thinking, dude, you are one fat burger away from a heart attack. Like, it's not even healthy. It's not even healthy to be that size.
You are crazy. You hit him with one fat burger.
Brad Johnson was a quarterback there.
Okay.
Yeah.
But Brad Johnson in Tampa Bay wasn't the Brad Johnson in Minnesota.
No.
He was just kind of holding the fort.
Mm-hmm.
But Trent
Dilfer, both of those teams were heavy defensive powerhouses.
Right.
Both of those teams.
Right. And and so was Jacksonville with Bortles. But
stop it. We're talking about Super Bowl winners.
No. You're
talking about Super Bowl winners.
AC.
Well, it's your point, so I'll let you run with it because it is your point, so I can't take away your point. But
the defense was not
Tampa Bay
when Jacksonville lost in the AFC Championship. The defense wasn't the issue. Bortles threw a pick in the third and fourth quarter.
Yeah,
I think one got returned. So he threw the game away more than they lost it. They definitely had that caliber defense.
All I'm saying is
This
is why all I'm saying is I was taking issue with the term powerhouse because we're talking about Hall of Famers on both of those teams. So my bad. Tell me the Hall of Famers or future Hall of Famers on Jacksonville's defense.
Calais. That's it.
Hall of Famers on both. That's what I was talking about.
The cornerback too as well. He's going to be a Hall of Famer.
Who?
Ramsey?
Yeah, Ramsey.
Was he on that?
Wait, y'all lost me. Who? Okay.
I'm
talking about
Ramsey. But this was like 2 or 3 years ago. They were in the AFC Championship game till the end. And Fournette left the game. He was what? Was he cramping or something like that?
Yeah, he was cramping.
He was cramping and left the game. They had that game won. I mean, they had a defense that was lights out. All they had to do was just kind of hold on to the ball and get a few first downs, and he couldn't complete a simple crossing route. So, Trent Dilfer did it.
All right, we'll agree to disagree on the term powerhouse.
Through that fingertip slant pattern to Shannon Sharp against the Raiders to go.
We're gonna agree to disagree on the term powerhouse.
See, I got to look at the roster before I comment completely because I can't remember the roster. But what?
Which roster? You talking about Jacksonville?
Jacksonville's roster. I can't remember exactly who was on their defense, but that particular year, their defense was holding teams to basically little of nothing.
They had big ends. Calais Campbell and I forget
the line was frightening.
Yeah.
Cool. Just Hall of Fame, Tampa Bay, Hall of Fame, Baltimore. That's all I was saying.
Yeah, but we grew up with Ed Reed and Ray Lewis. We know those names.
Listen, but we also knew they would be Hall of Famers, and we knew Warren Sapp would be a Hall of Famer, right? We knew that these guys would be Hall of Famers on these teams. That's what I'm saying. We knew they would be Hall of Famers. Look who joined us. What up, Trey?
Hey, what's up, Trey?
What up? Man, that was the longest SHI.
You know what? You can go ahead and let them off now because AC done already fired the gun first. So,
what happened?
we had to bleep him a few times.
Oh,
yeah, I cursed for the first time on this thing. I said "fuck the Celtics" or "fuck Boston," something like that. And I was like, "Oh, we're live." Well, I just own it now. I hate the Celtics. Always will.
Man,
we're talking.
But go ahead, Ryan. I was gonna switch it. But go ahead.
Oh, I wanted to hit on, man. I saw that that E60 on Alex Smith, man, and I've never. I mean, they didn't. I guess maybe they didn't have all the information, but I'm like they underreported how bad a shape he was in. If you saw that E60 report on Alex Smith in the special with the bacteria just slowly eating away his leg up to the thigh,
I can't watch it.
That was nothing short of a miracle.
But I can't hear. I mean, I can't watch it, but I'm gonna give you some names for homework, Rod. Okay, you ready? Mm-hmm. Derek Brooks, Warren Sapp,
aware of Tampa Bay.
Rondé Barber, John Lynch. I'll just stop with those four. I could probably name. Hold on.
Tampa Bay's defense.
Let's go to Baltimore. Ray Lewis,
Ed Reed,
Terrell Suggs,
Chris McAllister. I know.
That was my boy.
Y'all must have forgot. Okay, because you said I just powerhouse. All right, listen.
Okay,
listen. All right, so check it out. You mentioned Booger McFarland, and I missed your point. So I hope that I'm not going to speak against your point. If I happen to,
I can tell you. Oh, you got muted. You muted yourself.
I muted it so I could say something to the carnival behind me.
Real quick, all I said was he has to watch himself when he mimics the people who are training him to be an analyst, because he uses a lot of their phrases and words to describe players. And we have to be careful, when we got viewers and people watching, what phrases and words to use to describe certain players, because it puts some at an advantage and some at a disadvantage. But just paraphrasing.
Okay, so I won't make my Booger McFarland point today. We'll stay with that. Wait, wasn't he on that team too? Yeah, he was.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah.
Tampa Bay. All right, so check it. So I won't go to Booger. I'll go to basketball really quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to know from each of you. Well, let me give you some time to think about it. I want to talk about who you love to hear talk the game, or who you loved to hear talk the game when you're watching TV. So from a pure basketball perspective, for me, it's Hubie Brown.
That's it.
I love Hubie Brown.
That's
and from an NBA great perspective to accompany Hubie Brown, for me, it's Mark Jackson. Like that's it for me. It's Mark Jackson and Hubie Brown. I just want to know what you guys think. You guys obviously agree with the Hubie Brown portion. Who else do you love to hear?
I like Mark Jackson too. Hand down, man down. But let me tell you.
Obviously, Chick Hearn. That's not what
I was about to say. Yeah. Nothing like the
Chicken stew. I meant national. So to make it fair, national broadcast.
National.
Because I love Clyde Frazier on Knicks games, but he's not national. So,
well, do you mean analyst or do you just mean broadcaster?
No, I gave you. Well, okay, so you got the color commentator and you have the on air. So I'm talking about on air talent during games. So whatever you call them.
You know who else is not too bad either? To be honest with you, I like Reggie Miller.
Okay.
Damn.
I like any of those guys that tell the stories. I want to hear the stories. I want to hear the connection, the relevancy. I don't want to hear the Mike Brings.
So I'm gonna give you. So for college basketball,
Gus Johnson.
I'm gonna give you somebody's resume, Mike Tillery, and you're gonna tell me who I'm talking about. Maryland great college basketball analyst. Who is it?
Adrian Briggs?
Lenny Elmore.
That
dude, have you heard that man speak on a broadcast?
He's super intelligent.
My goodness.
Yeah.
That guy right there. And then, of course, just like you love, I love Dick Enberg in all sports.
I love Dick Enberg.
I could do Dick Enberg. I was a Musburger.
I like Stockton.
I like Stockton, Musburger. And who's the guy that does TNT right now? I don't know why I can't ever remember his name.
The guy that probably was doing it when he was a 5-year-old kid. What's his name? I could hear his voice in my head. Durant for 3, right between the eyes.
Yeah, he got a
distinct voice.
That's not Marv, right?
No. And he does radio too. I don't know why I hear his voice and I can't remember.
I can't. Kevin something?
Yes.
Oh, Kevin Harlan.
Kevin Harlan,
yeah.
I'll listen to Kevin Harlan all day.
Yeah, great.
Kevin Harlan and Hubie Brown and Mark Jackson for today. They're current. That's it for me. I couldn't stand Bob Costas, and Dick Enberg would put me to sleep. I couldn't watch the AFC when Dick Enberg was on NBC because I would go straight to sleep. His voice was just too old for me.
Don Criqui.
Yeah.
Remember that name?
So I'm gonna go. So let's go with the two sport, not the two sport athletes, but the two sport on air talent. I may be in the minority here, but I like Mike Tirico in football and basketball. I like Mike Tirico quite a bit. Interestingly enough, and I like Greg Gumbel in football. When what's my man's name? Bryant. When Bryant Gumbel did Thursday night football, I liked him. They only let him do 1 year. I don't know what happened, but he might have been too good for that. I like Chris Collinsworth on Thursdays. I know that's a blasphemous statement.
Oh God!
But only when let me be clear. Let me give you a qualifier. Not when he talks about. I like his stories. That's what it is. I like the history that he brings to the game. I don't necessarily like the other stuff. So that's what's tough for me. His voice does not annoy me, but there are things about him that annoy me. But I think he's a fit for Thursday football. But
you know who I hate?
Mike Tirico.
I
like Joe Buck.
Oh my gosh.
I hate Joe Buck?
Buck and Aikman. They just smack of super entitlement. You know what I mean?
I can't do Buck.
I have some trivia for you.
Okay.
Who did the first NFL on Fox broadcast?
The first NFL on Fox. Wow.
It wasn't Madden and Summerall?
No.
First one?
I'd have said like Madden or something.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good one.
I don't want to throw you off your game. Go ahead and finish about entitlement.
No, I mean, after Buck said that Randy Moss mooning the goalpost was the most disgusting thing he's ever seen.
I didn't know he said that. So
that's dropped him.
That's a black mark on him. Okay, he could be gone.
That was it. I don't.
That was brilliant.
Yeah, I don't like that Aikman. Does a lot of his games, Dallas games. He seems to also be one who does not speak in factual terms about black quarterbacks.
Oh, but I thought you just meant in general. Okay, yeah.
I just expect
he lost all those battles to Rodney Pete, so it might have something to do with it.
Might have something to do with it.
Shout out to Rodney Pete, even though I went to UCLA.
Heisman Trophy winner. He was the man back then. But I abhor Aikman and Buck.
I didn't say Aikman and Buck. I just said Buck because the two sports. Because I feel like that dude is a killer in baseball. He is a phenomenal guy in baseball.
I could tolerate him in baseball. His father was much, much greater.
Yeah, but he didn't do two sports, and rest in peace. I'm just talking about now.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm talking about now.
I just his 5 o'clock shadow makes me want to smack the TV. You know what I'm saying? It's just everything about him disgusts me.
Okay, so you mentioned Dallas Cowboy quarterback. Talk to me about Romo. Where is he? Where are you with him?
Romo is so surprising. He's excellent because he's surprising.
Oh, he's excellent. Okay.
Yeah.
Can he still be surprising now that he's the highest paid in the game?
I just think that it's a product of the market.
There's only one highest paid though, and it's him.
Yeah, it's him.
So he just set the market.
I call Booger McFarlane the Black Charles Barkley. You know what I mean?
I go with that.
He looks just like the mug, except he's like a chocolate. He's a chocolated Charles Barkley. he could be so much better, but like you were saying, he just kind of listens to what he's been told. That contraption that they had him in last season, I'm glad that's gone.
Oh, all right. So here I go. You guys brought it back to Booger McFarland, so clearly you want to hear me talk about him. So I've seen the progression in Booger McFarland as on-air talent, and I love him. And there's a lot of room for growth. But guess what? I don't know that we hold. Okay, so we care because he's a brother, and we want to make sure that the brother is representing us the right way. But hey, he can grow into that. Like I think Booger knows that he's black, and I think that he's growing into that role. And yeah, he does need to work on the adjectives that he uses. But I think he's coming into his own. There's more of Booger's personality on display every game. Like you're getting to know him more, and he's discovering who he is off the field as on-air talent. And I think Booger McFarland. How about this, Mike Tillery? I think Booger McFarland's going to be a Hall of Fame on-air, a Hall of Famer as far as on-air talent goes. Boom.
What's your criteria? Because for you like as far as an announcer. Because for me, their voice has to make me feel like I'm in the game. Like if I turn on the radio in the car and I'm listening,
dude makes Rodney. So I haven't thought about my criteria. Fair question, but I can tell you with him, why I said it about him, it's much like Mark Jackson, and by no means do I believe he's on Mark Jackson's level right now. And maybe he won't get there because I think that Mark Jackson is probably a once in a lifetime talent as far as a great in his sport. And I don't know that Booger was ever a great, right? So Mark Jackson wasn't a great in the NBA. Booger might have been great. I don't know. But why I'm so impressed with him is because he lets you into the game. It's what Romo is doing, right? He makes you feel like he explains every aspect of what he's trying to tell you. He doesn't assume that you know anything, and he will talk through it all, like exactly what it means to be on the line or be an edge rusher and why he's making this comment, why he's making that comment. And I feel like I'm in the locker room with him. That's what it is for me with him. And I feel like it's a unique perspective that only so many people could give you. Like Troy Aikman could give it to you, but he doesn't. Tony Romo does. And I believe that there's a lot more, like there's a machine behind Romo that isn't behind Booger. And, you could look at Tony Romo as much more light-skinned than Booger, as I like to say. But then also he was a quarterback. So, they always going to put that money behind the quarterback anyway. So he's realizing he realized his potential way before Booger has. They wanted Booger on a machine, and now Booger's in the booth, and eventually Booger will be the center of attention, in my opinion.
We brought you out of the rain. You can take the rain.
I thought you were gonna say we brought him in the big house.
Hey, I mean, you want to go there? But like for me, it's more. I think with me, I'm big on voice and personality because, I mean, our age group, we basically grew up on television when your voice had to sound different than anything else. And
they were all light skinned.
Right. But we can't deny that especially in LA, we had the best of the best. I mean,
best of all time. Vin Scully and Chick Hearn.
Like Vin Scully,
the best. Nothing mattered.
I could listen to a game on the radio and feel like I was there.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I love Vin Scully.
And the voice kept you excited. Even if you didn't understand what was happening, you felt like, like, the Lakers were down by 22. They cut it to 10. This is a game. It could be 3 minutes left in the fourth quarter, but they're still down by 15, and Chick still makes you feel like, you know what, there is still room for a comeback. Like, don't turn the radio off.
Mm-hmm.
And I need that. Need that. That's why I could never get with Dick Enberg. I got you. Bob Costas. I mean, you could hear crickets when he was on television. When he would talk about Chicago, it was like Chris Collinsworth with the Patriots. He just rode Jordan to death. Like, is anyone else playing, or is Jordan just doing some above the rim type stuff with Shepard playing against Invisible Nutso? Is he just out there shooting by himself? Because you're not talking to anyone else but Jordan.
So I want to. So for Dick, I want to be clear. It's cool. I want to be clear though. So the Dick Enberg thing for me is largely from tennis. I think that
I get it.
Yeah,
Dick Enberg is just like, he gets all the passes from me just because he is so phenomenal in tennis. And I can't think of my man right now that passed away that was heavy into tennis, but I really appreciated him too. But I want to give you the distinction here. I think to make this fair for Mr. McFarland, Booger is not the main guy in the booth, first of all. Second of all, Vince Scully and Chick Hearn came up in the radio era, and they were the play-by-play guys, right? So that's how they do a telecast, like it's a radio broadcast. So they're going to give you every aspect. They're going to let you know that what the breeze is doing to the grass and how the sun is gleaming off of the freshly polished helmet, and they're going to let you know who the organist is in the baseball game, and I guess we had an organist in the forum too. They're going to let you know all of this because they are from radio. So that's a gift, right? That's we don't have the same people on radio that we have on TV now. We have some people that can do both, or maybe came up doing both. But Booger is not being asked to do that. He's not the play-by-play guy.
Right.
So just I see potential. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, his voice just does nothing for me. He doesn't sound. His voice doesn't stand out to make me feel like wow, I need to be there if I'm, watching television. But it doesn't. He doesn't excite me. Neither does. I mean, I thought that the Lakers would have probably really dug to find Chick Hearn's, replacement, but they went with Mason and Ireland. They do nothing for me. Like they nothing. I mean, I feel nothing when I watch a Laker game. I could turn the sun all the way down and be just as content without hearing them. The voice has to capture me.
Hey, from a baseball perspective, I don't know who the guys are on Yes. Actually, I do. But boy, those guys on Nesson are some beasts, aren't they, Mike? Jerry Remy and them.
Oh yeah,
doing those Boston Red Sox telecasts.
Yeah,
he's shooting shots.
No, listen. In my life, I mean, once I became a fan in 1997, we got the same amount of rings. Or I'm a Dodger fan, but when I was a Red Sox fan, we had 4 rings. The Yankees had 4 rings in that same span. So I laugh it up largely because of 2004. But beyond that, the Yankees are by far a greater franchise than the Red Sox. They're not greater than the Dodgers. They just have more championships. But the Dodgers used to run New York when they were in Brooklyn. We all know. What up, Tillery? That's my dog. Hey, listen. This has been. I'm gonna say, hold on. Let me grab my mic. I'm gonna say Jackie Robinson and drop it.
Okay, man. I mean, you can.
I know I had a mic. I know I had a mic. I have a real mic to drop, huh?
I don't have, nothing to come back for that until Reggie did his thing in '77. So you got that.
Hey, and shout out to Mr. October. What? Reggie Jackson? Hey, and unfortunately, my favorite player of all time did some damage as a Yankee, Ricky Henderson. And that's unfortunate because, well, actually, I don't hate the Yankees anymore. So it's all good.
I found a baseball that my ex, her mother, would go to these memorabilia things, and she would buy me all kinds of balls, you know. Because I got a Reggie Jackson. She got me a Buck O'Neil ball. She got me a Reggie Smith ball.
Wow.
Okay, Reggie Smith. She got me a Babe Ruth ball. She really put out for me. But that I was just looking at the Reggie Smith ball yesterday. You know, and I didn't know that it had the letter of authenticity with it, but it's under the casing of the ball, and the casing was so old that it fell off, and I was able to finally see that letter of authenticity, you know, with Reggie and Buck.
Nice.
That's dope.
Yeah.
So, listen, we want to thank you guys again. YouTube viewership, Anchor and Spotify listenership, listeners on all the other DSPs. We appreciate you coming back time and again. Boy, was this great getting into a little more of The Last Dance, bringing home the Toni Kucoc piece. Again, rest in peace, Don Shula. Who else passed? Who'd you say, Mike?
Wet Night, tight end for the Bears. I don't know why I can't remember his first name all of a sudden.
Okay. We mentioned Tavares Jackson last time. Man, just people passing. Everybody stay safe, you know. Stay as safe as you can and love your family, even if you have to love from a distance. Life is so fragile. Mm-hmm. Life is so precious and so fragile, and you never know. I mean, listen, I went to Mexico in January, late January, with my fiance for her birthday. We were out there for 4 days, something like that. Like the COVID-19, the coronavirus situation was announced like right when we got back. And then we wound up going to San Diego, like literally right before they put California on lockdown. And we took precautions. We didn't take any precautions in Mexico because we didn't know. And we took some in San Diego, but we didn't get sick with it until we came home and it was like, yo, the world is going on lockdown. And boy, I feel like we missed. It was a close call and we got out of it, and not everybody did. So people stay as safe as you can. And I got everyone in my prayers. Let's go to the closeout. Again, we appreciate you all. Let's go to the closeout, and we'll start with you this time, Trey. What you got?
Again, you pretty much nailed it, man. Everybody stay safe out there, man. Listen to your governors in Los Angeles. Try to listen to them worldwide, because some of these governors is putting people back in terrible situations. Stay home, man. You've been home this long. I say, even if they do open stuff back up, don't be the first group of people to go out there. Make sure that these numbers aren't rising. You know what I mean? I mean, you've been staying home this long. Stay home a little longer. You know, you don't want to be someone that knows someone that was affected by this. You don't want to be that person. There's a lot of you out there that don't know anyone that's been affected. You don't want that. And the way to alleviate that is by staying home. Stay home, stay healthy. Spend this time with your loved ones, because it's never going to happen again where we get to stay in like this. Again, thanks to all the listeners out there, man. We do appreciate you each and every day, because we know that we are a choice and you choose to listen to us, and we're really grateful for that. Yeah, everybody stay safe. That's it.
Oh, Mizzo.
I'd like to make a request to all my pro athlete friends, my entertainer friends. Alexa's talking to me right now. I didn't even say her name. I guess she wants in on this podcast as well. But yo, listen, y'all. We got something good going here, and we'd like y'all to come on. Speak your wares. You know, you can talk about whatever you need to talk about. We're going to ask you some questions that you might feel uncomfortable with, but we do want you guys to come on here and speak about the game authentically, because you know that's just the lost art of sports now. You know, I implored athletes, I implored to the media back then in the last decade that if they did not quit the snark, that athletes were going to go to their own blogs. First was the websites, then it was their blogs, now it's social media. You know, they're cutting us out. But we would like y'all to come on so we can have a true discussion about sports. You know, you're not going to be like blown away in a negative sense about what we're going to ask you. We're going to ask you the right questions. We want you to definitively answer, you know, and represent yourself so that your words aren't taken out of context. You know, so welcome. You know, we would love you to come on. And, you know, we would be honored for you to come on and just have a conversation with the four of us. We've got four great personalities here and very knowledgeable about sports. You know, come and talk to us.
Yo, I love it. I echo that. My entertainer friends, my athlete friends, my Bruin family especially, come on the podcast. Everything that Mike just said, it applies. Come on. We talked about black quarterbacks today. I want to correct myself. Skip Pete, not a quarterback whisperer, a running back whisperer. And so something for you guys to think about for next time. Skip Pete has now gone from Todd Gurley, who's actually gone from the Rams anyway, to Ezekiel Elliott. He's now the quarterback. I keep saying quarterback. He's the running backs coach in Dallas now. I wonder what that does for Skip Pete. Our coordinators who got these Rooney Rule looks, good luck. Our coordinators who got real looks, I hope you get jobs next year. Rodney Pete, Holly Robinson Pete, come on the show. Let's talk about the Holly Rod Foundation and let's talk sports. Everybody else I reach to, come on. Hey, Dawn Staley, Nikki McCrae, we got stuff to talk about. We got to talk about UVA and Tennessee. We're going to talk about Team USA. We'll talk about Dawn's Richmond Rage and Nikki's Columbus Quest and how that first ABL championship, they were in it together. Let's talk about currently what y'all doing in the SEC, South Carolina and now Nikki McCrae and Mississippi State. Let's talk. Come on, ladies. Hey, come check us out. We love all of you. We want to talk to you. We're going to ask you the hard questions. It's cool. We're a different kind of podcast. Brothers, I appreciate y'all. Listeners, viewers, we appreciate y'all. We'll see you next time on episode 10. We out.
Absolutely.
Peace.
That would be good.
Yes, sir.